Story 1. I tend to isolate myself. People like me and I like them, but I have a hard time keeping up. Story 2. I have 3 friends. They all live 500 miles away. I do not trust coworkers. Story 3. It's me. People tend to like me early on, then not so much soon after. I don't know what it is about me. Story 4. I genuinely do not have the instinct to fit into social groups, even online. I am always an outsider. Story 5. I am not talkative and often not very interested in what people have to say. Story 6. The part of me that could be open and vulnerable enough to let someone in and to rely on or trust them has been completely burned out of me. Story 7. I got tired of being the reliable friend, always willing to help with tasks, lend money, do favors, and so on. It gets tiring after a while. Story 8. People fucking suck, and I would rather be alone than deal with other people's nonsense. Story 9. I just prefer to do my own thing. People are so untrustworthy and self-centered nowadays. I can do bad all by myself. Story 10. My circle became much smaller as I tolerated less nonsense. I know many people, lots of acquaintances and a large professional network, but I would rather relax at home after work. I interact with people every day and do not want to socialize afterward. Story 11. I am silent. I do not share or engage in gossip. Story 12. I do not like most people. I am socially awkward and keep to myself. Story 13. I have never found people I can truly be friends with. I also self-isolate a lot, overthink, and have very low self-esteem that does not even allow me to believe I could have friends because I feel unworthy. Story 14. The real reason I do not have any friends is that people betrayed and hurt me so many times that I no longer try to make friends. I am autistic, and many people avoid being friends with me because they think I am weird or awkward. Story 15. I am terrible at staying in touch. If I see you, we will have a great time, but I do not think about other people often. I tend to drift in my own lane because of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and brain fog. Story 16. It requires effort. I think I've reached a place where I don't want to put in the effort. People are exhausting. I'm doing well just caring for myself. Story 17. Too much work for people who will stab you in the back and do not call unless they need you to help them move their couch. Story 18. If I'm friendly, people try to use me and call me stupid. If I'm firm and direct, they act offended. If I'm confident and quiet, they call me a stuck-up bitch. I have a handful of friends, though. It's a small number considering how many friendships have failed. I genuinely don't understand why people approach friendships with agendas. When I make a friend, I want to have fun. Hang out, chat, encourage each other, go to the movies, have dinner, and go hiking. Some friends seem to engage in power plays and try to gain from the friendship. Some have taken passive-aggressive digs at me, copied me relentlessly, tried to control me, been condescending, suffocated me, competed with me, used me, and repeatedly disrespected my boundaries. It's exhausting, and I'm completely surprised when I realize a friend has ulterior motives. I have foolishly trusted and loved many friends with pure intentions. I'm sticking with the 5 or 6 friends I have left, even though a few are long distance or very busy with kids and work. I don't trust anyone else anymore. Story 19. I was antisocial when I was younger and experienced a knock-on effect in adulthood. Story 20. I enjoy my own company and prefer quality over quantity when it comes to friendships. Story 21. I get tired of talking to people, let alone being friends. I like to be left alone. Story 22. I cannot stand people who are flaky and unreliable. Nearly everyone I know is like that. Story 23. I'd be a bad friend. At this point in my life, after work my social battery is drained, and I'd rather spend my remaining energy on my wife and kids. My kids are still young and think I'm the coolest guy in the world, and I want to enjoy that for as long as I can. I'm sure one day they won't want to hang out with their dad anymore. And when that day comes, I want to know I spent as much time with them as I could. Story 24. I find it hard to maintain interpersonal relationships. Talking to people is difficult. Caring about them when they are not around is even more difficult. Story 25. People are fucking needy. When you get closer to someone, they want things. I don't want to help you move, watch your dog, or hear you complain about your significant other. No, you can't borrow money. Jesus Christ. Can't you people just be cool and hang out rent-free? Story 26. Talking to people exhausts me. Once a conversation hits the 2-minute mark, I am ready to check out and have my solitude and my thoughts back. Most conversations people have with me do not provide value. They are just meant to kill time and silence, both of which I value. Story 27. I cannot figure out when to give more and when to give less, and it causes me so much grief. Narcissistic people drain me, and my mental health has always been poor, so I am in survival mode. That makes me seem strange. Relationships are exhausting. I try, but I fail. Story 28. I am a people pleaser with strong opinions. I avoid conflict even at the expense of my own feelings, but when these feelings build up too much, I lash out and feel like the reincarnation of Satan. Story 29. I wake up, go to work, and come home. I have not found the right people. When I was in school, my high school friends hung out together while I was left out. I remember leaving my friend group for a few months to sit alone, and when I came back, no one asked if I was okay. It was hard to fit in with people. I am also bullied in public for the way I look. Story 30. Who would be friends with me? I hate everyone. Everything seems stupid. Story 31. I tend to isolate and withdraw and am not good at keeping up with people. I am an introvert who values alone time and prefers to be self-contained. Story 32. I messed up relationships that were important. Then I realized the people I surrounded myself with afterward were hurting me. So I reverted to zero and started from the ground up. A few coworkers and my immediate family are close. That's about it, and it's pretty good, just enough socializing to keep me sane but below the level that stresses me out. Story 33. The older I get, the more I can pinpoint nonsense right from the start. Story 34. I got a job young, missed every social gathering, and was a mopey piece of shit at the few I did attend. I'm an employee first, a friend second, and a person last. Story 35. I would rather stay home and smoke marijuana than hang out with anyone. Story 36. Everyone will always disappoint you. It is just a matter of when. Story 37. If I do not text them first, we never talk. Loneliness is not that bad anymore. I have acclimated to it. Story 38. They annoyed me by dragging me to events I disliked. When I said I did not like it or I wanted to stay home, they began to harass me, begging or intentionally making me feel guilty and calling me a bad friend. When I wanted to go somewhere and asked them to join me, they turned me down within seconds. They did not give a reason or even make up a lie. I just received a no as a response. That happened from age 16 to 21. Since 22, I have had no friends at all. I am 36 now and do not regret my decision. Story 39. I am not an interesting person, and I fear that having friends will reveal this. Story 40. I experience anxiety and shame. This makes it difficult for me to stay in touch with people. Story 41. I'm a little awkward sometimes and don't always know how to carry conversations like some people do. Frankly, I'm tired and not motivated to put on a smile. I'm content to have my wife as a friend and a few online friends I game with. Story 42. I don't really know. I seem to be the person people just forget about. If an event is happening, no one remembers to invite me. While I'm not the most social person, I think I have adequate social skills. When people are with me, they seem to enjoy my company. Several years ago, I realized I was the one who always initiated conversations, so after a while I stopped initiating and basically have not heard from 95% of my friends since. It was a real bummer, as I thought a lot of those people were good friends, but I guess it was a one-sided relationship. Story 43. People are universally terrible and stupid and do not deserve your friendship. This is misanthropy. Story 44. I have only a few left. The older I get, the more I realize that 95% of people are complete morons or selfish assholes. Story 45. I have intrusive thoughts that people hate me, along with low self-confidence and social anxiety, which led to self-isolation. I didn't have any trouble making friends and spending time with them earlier in life, and I really miss that. Story 46. People do not call me the way I call them. I have stopped calling people, so I have no real friends. Something is wrong with me, I guess. My wife and children love me. I listen 80% of the time and talk 20%. I never talk down to anyone. I am not a know-it-all. I do not understand it. Story 47. I moved to a new state. I work, go home, and spend time with my dogs. I cannot say I have friends because my dogs are my best friends, even though they can get annoying sometimes. Story 48. It's hard to trust people based on experience, and I don't like drama. I would rather live a peaceful life. Story 49. Having friends would require me to actually leave my house. Story 50. My whole life I have gravitated toward one individual rather than groups. Even when I had a group of friends, I was usually much closer to one person at a given time rather than equally close to everyone. Now I am married, and my wife fills that role for me. Some people want more than that, external friendships, and I respect that, but I am happy with this. On top of that, socializing has always felt like a chore. I do it to maintain relationships I want to keep, but it feels like work and I would rather not. In short, I am not lonely and I do not enjoy socializing. Story 51. I try to make friends, but people often seem insincere. I worked at the same job for a year and felt like everyone disliked me, even though I said hello and tried to be kind. I worry I am too old to make new friends. Story 52. Most people are really boring. They don't talk about anything interesting, relevant, or even remotely helpful. I get it. I have days when I just want to complain and be silly too. But when that is all someone does, it is almost an eye roll to think about seeing them. I want to hear about everything except that. I want to hear about your hopes and dreams and your goals. I want to sit down and make plans to find success in life for all of us. People claim to be so alone, but 90% of the time it is because they are afraid to talk about the things they really want. If only everyone knew we are much more alike than anyone wants to admit, and we all think and feel generally the same ways, just at different times. Story 53. I do not trust people. I have had many friends who betrayed me for trivial reasons. Story 54. This used to be me. At first I thought it was too difficult to relate to the people around me. Then I was lucky enough to meet a few people who truly understood me. And it is amazing. If solitude is not your thing, I highly recommend trying to connect with others. Story 55. I have a short social battery and usually end the conversation after about 3 minutes. Story 56. I have only a few friends because I am choosy and a bit unusual. I am not good at small talk. Story 57. I have friends, but they all live in other states. I do not have any local friends because I never leave the house. Story 58. Most of my friends were awful and I got sick of it, so I cut them off. Story 59. I am bored. Socializing is exhausting, and I just want to be at home. Story 60. I enjoy my own company too much and I cannot be too blunt or curt, so I sometimes appear ignorant, which I kind of am, to be honest. Story 61. I don't really like to hang out with people. I work at an assisted living facility and get plenty of interaction at work. When I'm home, I am content to spend my free time with my girlfriend and our dogs. Story 62. People betray me easily. I just want to laugh and have fun, not worry about being taken advantage of or made to feel small or helpless. My childhood best friend and I grew apart during high school. At graduation, he chose to partner walk with my only other friend from high school, which hurt. After high school, the three of us experimented with drugs. I thought that was the coolest thing we did together, and it made me feel like the Workaholics crew. Then I found text messages between them arranging to meet and use drugs without me. That really hurt because I loved our three-person crew and I loved drugs. I felt like a third wheel and never really recovered. We all moved apart, and they do not care to see or visit me like they used to. I expect people to see me as expendable or not good enough to maintain a relationship. Story 63. Kiss, butter, support, dinner, ink, badge, bag, file, cooing, 1. Story 64. I am a painfully awkward introvert with crippling social anxiety. and I have a very hard time connecting with people and maintaining relationships. Story 65. I do, sort of. I have a friend who is an ex-coworker. She is very busy and lives in another city, and we rarely talk unless I am in a crisis. I have another ex-coworker whom I would really like to be friends with, but he seems like a loner. I have his phone number, but he rarely answers and his phone did not have text capabilities. At work it was hard to talk because we were both very busy. I consider him a friend on my part. I have an ex-boyfriend who sexually assaulted me in the past, but who has also been there for me on occasion after we broke up. I consider him a friend sometimes. I have a sister who I am closer with than the rest of my family. She has been a sort of friend on occasion. It's complicated because there is real familial trauma, so I have mixed feelings. If I needed to, I could go to her. I have a current friend I only know through the internet. We will never meet, but sometimes we lift each other up. I have some people I used to consider friends who are not friends anymore. For most of my life, I did not have friends. In some years of high school, I hung out with people at lunch sometimes, but they were not really friends. When I was younger, this was because of social anxiety, the feeling that either they or I was not good enough, the fear of being hurt or betrayed, and the belief that no one really liked me. After I moved out of my parents' house, I had no friends because of severe untreated depression and working two jobs. Often I did not speak the same language as the people I worked with, and many coworkers were unpleasant and not people I would want as friends. I can tolerate only very small amounts of social interaction, even with people I genuinely like, and people I genuinely like are few and far between. I was homeless for years. I have always been pretty unusual, and there is trauma as well. Recently, within the last few years, I have begun to develop relationships that could be considered friendships. They are unconventional, and some people might not consider them friendships. I also have my cats. It works for me, and it is better than nothing. Story 66. Either the friendship lasts at most a month, or people become attracted to me. No, that is not my ego speaking. I do not have trouble making friends. I have trouble keeping them. When the semester ends, we have different classes and stop talking, or some people try to make advances toward me. I am not cool enough to be part of the cool kids. I am a weirdo who had a glow up. Story 67. After my divorce, all of my friends were couples I used to hang out with. Slowly, they all disappeared. Story 68. I am 43 years old and I only go between work and home. I do not meet people and I have no interest in meeting new people. At this point, I do not even know how to make new friends. I am content with the few friends I have had for more than 20 years. Story 69. Interacting with people for any length of time annoys me. I would rather be alone. As a former boss so eloquently put it on a performance evaluation, I am intolerant of stupidity. I am also an asshole. Story 70. I don't take time for them. I'd love to have friends, but maintaining friendships is just too much of a hassle. I have better things to do. Story 71. I feel boring and easily forgotten. I am always the one putting in more effort. I feel like I will never be enough for other people. Story 72. Because life is short, why deal with bullshit if you don't have to? Story 73. I am an asshole. I do not mind being one. People dislike assholes. Story 74. I do not want to socialize or deal with people gossiping about my business and everyone else's. I really only hang out with two people. Less is more. Story 75. I'm married and 36 years old. I have social anxiety and I don't have the energy to try to make new friends, because I generally don't like people much anyway. I'd rather hang out with my husband and his friends. Story 76. Because I just don't care. I'm exhausted from hanging out with my daughter all day. I don't need another person to think about. Story 77. Maintaining friendships is exhausting. I just want to be myself, not who others want me to be. I can be myself and feel totally happy alone. Story 78. I left them and moved to New Zealand. No regrets. Then everyone I have met here has also moved away. I got to a point where I gave up being social and started getting high. Story 79. The friends I had for more than 10 years turned out not to be true friends. They backstabbed me at the first chance they got, or they moved on with their lives and never contacted me again. I was their friend only as long as I was useful to them. I have been disillusioned about having friends ever since. Story 80. I genuinely like being alone. I prefer it, to be honest. I do not like people calling me repeatedly, and I do not answer calls except from a few people. I also have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. So when people text me, I sometimes forget to respond for hours or days. Story 81. I do not really put effort into trying to meet people, so even if I find someone I would consider a friend, the initiative is usually theirs. I tend to prefer being alone, so this comes at the cost of not being able to build real friendships. The upside is that I can do what I want whenever I want. Story 82. I have them, but I am invited and then uninvited so often that I do not have them. Story 83. I distance myself from people. I do not trust others and do not like crowds. All of that together means I am screwed. Story 84. I do not really like people that much. The friends I once had are all drug addicts now, so I keep to myself. Story 85. It overwhelms me. I like my alone time. Even with work, family, and my girlfriend, I find it hard to have any alone time during the week. If I added friends, my alone time would be 0 and I could not cope with that. Even a group chat is too much for me, so I refuse to join. Story 86. Most people are not trustworthy enough to be close to. I am social and friendly with many people, but there is no one I open up to. Story 87. I tried to hold on to toxic people and ended up pushing the good ones away. Story 88. A spiritual awakening, or they simply remove themselves, which to me is still part of the process. This was especially true when things started to go off course for me. Story 89. I pushed them all out because I no longer have any tolerance for bullshit and I am an asshole. Story 90. I technically have friends, but I don't see them often, which makes it feel like I don't. Reasons for this are: 1. Self-isolation and introversion. 2. I enjoy my own company. 3. I'm not typically interested in keeping up. 4. I'm not interested in many of their activities. 5. I don't make much effort to meet new people. 6. I would be annoyed if someone constantly tried to hang out without giving me enough alone time. The only time I feel conflicted is when I see people's highlight reels on social media. For a moment I compare myself and think I should be more social, then I come back to reality because it seems like a lot of responsibility and I feel a bit overwhelmed. I'm just on my own wavelength, I guess. Story 91. 2 things ended my friendships. 1. I started putting myself first. 2. I stopped waiting around for people. Life is too short. For example, if we had plans on Wednesday at noon and you could not make those plans, and you did not text me to say you could not make them, and you essentially ghosted me for hours, then reached out much later to ask to hang out, do not be surprised when I say no. Story 92. I'm very comfortable and content. Most of you bastards only increase stress. Story 93. Having friends requires spending time maintaining relationships, such as chatting occasionally and hanging out. However, it is common to be busy sometimes and become disconnected. Afterwards, it can feel awkward to send even a simple greeting, and you may end up feeling friendless. Story 94. I am not good at keeping in contact, and I do not have a regular sleep schedule. Story 95. Both parents are pathological narcissists. I am too tired to maintain friendships and feel exhausted all the time. Story 96. I am too narcissistic and am failing to work on it properly and to expand my social circle in the right way. Story 97. Because I have never had real friends. At most, the closest I had were people I hung around with. It has been so long since I did that. I try to socialize, but whenever I attempt to hang out with anyone, I genuinely do not know how. Nobody wants to come to my place, and nobody wants to talk with me. The closest I get is when I am smoking, and even then I am just there, whether it is my weed or not. To be honest, I think the answer is that because I have been an outcast my entire life, I do not know how to have friends. I want to. I really want to, but I just cannot. Story 98. What if they like me and I have to keep up appearances? Story 99. I am awful at keeping in touch with my friends. I get caught up in life and honestly never reach out. I should reach out. Story 100. Recently I realized that I want friends, but I am not willing to put in the effort. This is a paradox. Story 101. I do not have any friends because my maturity does not match my age group. It does not align with my life or my thoughts. I like being alone, but sometimes I feel lonely. I am still trying to figure out why. Story 102. I do not want anything. We are not close anyway. I have been burned by so-called friends. I just keep to myself these days. Story 103. When I reach a certain point in a friendship, I don't feel I deserve the other person's time, so I purposely isolate myself. Story 104. People want to go do things, which creates obligations. Obligations annoy me. I prefer small groups of 2 to 3 people and deep conversation. Most men I was friends with never escaped the I am getting wasted phase. I am married, I have a son, and I have built a career and a family life. I cut those friends out. All I want is a scotch, a cigar, and good conversation in a comfortable setting, not drinking to get hammered with music so loud I cannot hear myself think. Story 105. They have all let me down one way or another. You reach a point where you realize that the only person you can truly rely on and who won't let you down is yourself. Story 106. I went into a self-imposed isolation for my mental health in December 2019, not realizing the world would do the same a few months later. I never returned to social life. In hindsight, I needed a Samwise, but I was surrounded by Smeagol's. I kind of gave up and now relax with my dog. Story 107. I was a bad person for a long time. When you are almost 30, it is hard to make friends even if you have cleaned yourself up. I also find it hard to relate to most people now. Story 108. Quarantine damaged my social skills, and they are still recovering. I had to relearn many things. Story 109. I had a big group of friends in my teens and most of my 20s. Now, at 33, all I need is my wife and my kids. Story 110. The last time I had a large friend group, we were indicted laughing out loud. Story 111. I moved to a different county to live with my partner. I have been here 7 years and still have not made many friends. It feels like everyone already has their own friends, so it has been tough. We have a toddler now, and I wish my friends lived closer for support and social connection. It is quite lonely. Story 112. I feel like I am too black and white about getting along with people. If I only somewhat get along with somebody, social interaction becomes almost too taxing to be worth it. I am out of school and have no idea where I would find friends at the present. I honestly have a low tolerance for the smallest things about people. They annoy me to the point where hanging out with people or looking for people to hang out with feels not worth it at this point in my life. It only ever really felt worth it when I was on drugs, and when I was sober only with somebody who I am very compatible with. Story 113. I'm an ambivert. I'm not good with fashion trends and I don't like trying to fit in like other teens. I'm usually quiet, and I have significant anger issues. My parents rarely know when I'm being bullied, so I'm afraid of popular students. Story 114. I have been ill with what appears to be a neurological autoimmune disease since 2020, and perhaps earlier. I am not the same person I was before I became ill. My friends become frightened when I cannot find the words to take part in a conversation, and they too often adopt a sympathetic tone. That is painful for both them and me in different ways. Story 115. I am bad at choosing friends. I had many before. After making calls and sending messages without receiving responses, I assumed they got what they wanted and left. Story 116. I am 35 and single. My friends have moved away for work, gotten married, or had children. Where I live, there is a strong emphasis on being married by around 30, so when I try to make new unmarried friends, I end up spending time with people in their 20s. Story 117. They do not like me anymore and I feel like I do not belong. Story 118. I don't like hanging out, so many people drift away. I have many friends who live far away. Story 119. As you get older, you do not need as much interaction to feel relevant. Story 120. Even though I long for friendships, I sabotage them. I have not found the exact reason yet. Story 121. I don't know how to turn an acquaintance into a friend. I am scared to talk openly to people who intimidate me. Many people intimidate me, and they look at me as if they hate me. I feel weird. I am generally socially unaware, which makes others reluctant to talk to me. Story 122. I have many friends. I just don't hang out with them. Story 123. I have always bounced from group to group. As I aged and matured, my interests changed and we drifted apart. Now in my 40s, with my wife and child, I find myself isolated. Story 124. I was bullied and do not trust many people. I have online friends, but I do not want friends in person. Story 125. I learned the hard way that most of my friends were deadbeats or trash, and keeping them around just to have friends was the real reason my life was going nowhere. Story 126. I get along with people easily and am pretty easygoing. I work about 60 hours a week and have responsibilities at home, so cultivating friendships takes time I do not have. My wife tried to make friends with the neighbor and even let her into our house. The neighbor pocketed some things and rented pay-per-view when my wife stepped outside for a minute. Being burned like that a few times has made me cautious about who I let into my life. Story 127. I'm autistic. I'm more childish than typical for a 19-year-old and don't enjoy going out, hanging out with friends, or partying. I like My Little Pony, Littlest Pet Shop, plushies, children's shows, and toys. I sleep with a plushie every night and sometimes take it with me when I go places. I feel that nobody wants to be friends with someone like me. It would be embarrassing for them. I have learned to live on my own. I haven't been in school for almost 3 years, haven't had a friend in about 5 years, and haven't texted or called anyone in those 5 years. Story 128. I do not want to invest the time in a real friendship and do not relate well to people my age because I am the caregiver for my 2 disabled adult sons and probably always will be. Most people my age are empty nesters. Story 129. I do not have many friends. I have a few and do not want more. It is too much trouble and commitment. Story 130. I am transgender. I make friends easily, but when people find out, they change. Usually they become distant and I end up growing apart from them. Sometimes they are openly hostile. I do not understand why people have such a problem with it. Story 131. I'm extremely introverted and find it hard to converse with people. There is not a single extroverted cell in my body. I'm also very cynical and pessimistic, usually assuming the worst in others. Combine those factors and I have no friends. I have no desire to go out and meet new people, so I usually spend weekends alone with my dog. It is hard because sometimes I get very lonely, and it makes me realize I do want and need friends. In my mind, however, it is not worth meeting someone unless I can form a meaningful connection, and that feels impossible for me. Story 132. Too much time on social media. Avoiding meaningful human interaction. Story 133. Lack of trust, lack of desire, and an extreme unwillingness to put up with bullshit of any kind. I am tired of adults being selfish and stupid, tired of adults acting like teenagers with gossip and microbullying, tired of being proselytized. I am an atheist and tired of being the go-to when things go wrong to solve other people's problems. Yet when I very rarely need a hand, it becomes excuse central and a ghost town. I am the type of person you can see coming from a mile away, and that unnerves almost everyone, especially at work. I am known there for being the honest one, and I actually make an effort not to be an asshole unless it is deserved. Since I won't buy into the bullshit, people tend to avoid me, which suits me fine. That includes my supervisors. They learn quickly not to play games with me because it backfires spectacularly. I have had 5 supervisors in the last 8 years. 5-finger death punch summed it up best. You gotta burn somebody to learn somebody. Everybody's got a Jekyll and Hyde. I'm done being burned. I'm done caring about what other people think. I care even less about what others think of me personally. I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to take care of my family first and foremost. I get more than enough pleasure spending time with my kids. It is very rare that I actually enjoy other adults' company. Original poster, sorry for the rant. This may or may not be what you wanted as an answer, but this is mine. May your 2025 be better than your 2024. Story 134. I enjoy my own time. My previous friends left and tried to undermine my work, so I cut ties with them. I don't need that in my life. After that, I quit drinking and focused on getting into great shape. Now I work, eat a healthy diet, and go to the gym. I don't have much time for anything else. Story 135. I moved here 3 months ago. I am not really much of a bar person anymore, and the locals tend to stick to their own groups. Story 136. I think and I hope and pray that I have my friends if I look for them, but I basically told them to leave me alone so I could figure my shit out. I was becoming a total asshole. Story 137. I get anxious that they are not being honest with me, and I find my need for validation embarrassing. When I do trust someone, I tend to become attached in a way that is not appropriate for platonic friendship. I therefore stick to romantic relationships and solitary hobbies. Story 138. I both distrust people in general and feel unworthy of friendship. Story 139. Most people are illogical and not objective, which makes it hard to relate to them and to build meaningful bonds. Story 140. I am a 29-year-old man with a genuine fear of revealing anything about myself. I have done interesting things and have hobbies, but I avoid talking about myself. As a result, I build only surface-level friendships that never go deeper, because I essentially interview everyone I talk to learn about them without sharing much. Dating is a disaster for me because of this, so I have largely given up. If I am not socially calibrated at 29, it is unlikely to change. I want to have a family one day, but since I cannot get past the dating stage, that seems unlikely. I feel bad for my parents. I think they feel they raised a loser because other men in my family my age have families or long-term romantic partners, and I have been single for 8 years. Story 141. People have shown they are untrustworthy. If I cannot trust you, I do not want to know you. Story 142. My old friends did not care when I came back from a mental hospital, laughing out loud. Story 143. I escaped a life and community centered around church, and I lost all my black friends. After Trump's election in 2016, I felt deeply disturbed watching white liberals and online leftists lose their minds. I am black. There were terrible racist things happening before Trump that they did not grieve about. But the amount of white women's tears shed on election night pissed me off. It showed how little they cared when they were not personally affected. So, for the past 8 years, I have largely stayed away from white people. I still have many casual acquaintances. We greet each other at shows. I bump into people I know all the time. Everyone is happy that I am back in town. I agree that we should hang out sometime, and I intentionally never follow up or make plans. It has been peaceful removing so many people from my life. Story 144. Because I was the teacher's pet for a year and everyone disliked me. I stopped being one, but they still hate me. When I meet someone, I do not talk to them because I know it will turn out badly. Story 145. I have been burned so many times that I find I cannot trust anyone enough to let them in. Also, I do not really relate to other guys. I was never into the things that most guys are. Story 146. I have no friends. Meeting people in my mid-20s feels impossible. Story 147. I work, go to school, spend time with my fiancé, pursue some hobbies, and take care of the pets. I do not have any time to fit it in. Story 148. Unemployment led to poverty and low self-esteem. I do not feel that I deserve to have friends, and I worry that people will look down on me. Story 149. I have a general dislike of people and the stupidity and drama that come with it. I have 2 good friends, and that is all I will ever need. Story 150. I do not speak the same language as everyone else. When I try, I cannot connect with people. I am musical, but my tastes are not widely shared. Story 151. I moved to Toronto last year. All my closest friends were my roommates, and after 3 friendship breakups I realized that was not a good arrangement. Being close to a roommate can easily backfire, so I keep my distance from my current roommate. I work from home, so I am not close to my colleagues. My only friends are 2 college friends, a person I am in a situationship with, and an old neighbor. I usually see them 2 or 3 times a month. Story 152. Besides depression, generalized and social anxiety, and other issues, I know I would be a horrible friend. I would say yes to plans and then cancel, not answer the phone or respond to texts quickly. I just wouldn't have the energy to invest in a friendship. Story 153. I have been abandoned and forgotten by people I thought were my friends too many times, so now I prefer my own company because at least I like myself. Story 154. Before agoraphobia got bad and I stopped leaving the house, I visited my friends almost every weekend. They have made no effort to see me. They planned to visit twice and canceled both times. Story 155. I let people walk all over me and then get called sensitive. Story 156. My best friend is online, and we went from playing role-playing games every night to maybe once a week because she started playing 3 other games with other groups. She now logs on later than before because she has a child, which does not work for me when I have to work early. Story 157. I am not a follower and have a low tolerance for manufactured drama and inauthentic people. I am honest and direct, which I have heard intimidates others. Story 158. Any attempt to form a friend group never lasted. I was rarely invited to gatherings. I also do not have the social awareness or ability to read cues needed to have relatable conversations in the moment. Story 159. I am neurodivergent. That can help attract people, but in social settings over time it does not work. I tend to want to talk only about complex or elaborate subjects, and I require a constant influx of stimulation, which is exhausting for someone who just wants a beer after work. It is no one's fault. It is what it is. Story 160. I'm not saying I could easily make friends. I probably could not. One reason is that I would not be willing to invest the time and energy to maintain them. Having online friends is much lower maintenance. Story 161. I like people, but I have a hard time trusting them enough to form relationships that go beyond a surface level. I stay within a very small social circle. Story 162. I have trust issues. I have been through a lot and did not tell them about my family and childhood because it was very bad. Story 163. I cannot be around anyone without them becoming overly jealous, lying, setting me up, intentionally embarrassing me in front of large groups, competing with me, or putting me in danger. Story 164. I don't want to maintain friendships. I have a few friends, but we rarely hang out. We usually just check in with each other. I'd rather stay home with my husband and relax. Story 165. I think it is because deep down I believe that I am unlikable. This is a side effect of being the family scapegoat. Story 166. I used to have a lot of friends. I put zero effort into maintaining friendships, and I don't care that much anymore. I have 2 good friends, and that's it. Story 167. Experience has taught me not to trust people. And even if that were to change, my untreated attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and depression cause me to lose contact with people quickly. The 3 friends I still have are dearer to me than my own life. Story 168. Nobody I'm really interested in wants to be my friend. It's hard to find the right person. Story 169. I hate sports. My dad never spent time with me as a child. Sundays were his football days, and we had to leave him alone. That traumatized me. At work, a coworker's husband watches Sunday football and behaves the same way as my dad. I do not get along with men who like sports. That includes about 95% of men. Story 170. I think the main reason is that I do not really go out of my way to make friends. I am also introverted and have trust issues. I have made some friendly acquaintances, though. Story 171. I suffered post-traumatic stress disorder after being sexually assaulted and isolated myself during the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic. I cannot trust or connect with people anymore. Story 172. People suck. End of story. I have 2 best friends. One is a close friend. The other is also a close friend but is in a different stage of life. She has children and I do not yet. I also have many acquaintances. They all live in different states from me. Takes a lot of planning to see each other, but we make it work. Story 173. I struggle to be understanding when people complain about the consequences of their poor choices. Story 174. I wasted my youth pursuing people who did not care about me as friends. They can roast in hell for tempting me to waste time. They were aimless, lacking ambition, and of low character. They did teach me some valuable lessons, though. 1. Respect your parents. Respect yourself. 2. Respect knowledge. 3. Do not fear. I know better now than to accept just anyone into my life. Be extremely careful who you give even a modicum of attention to. Story 175. I honestly prefer being by myself. I have not met anyone who genuinely matches my interests and priorities, so I would rather be alone in the bathroom at lunch. Story 176. I'm too focused on my wife and kids to spare any time for someone's bullshit. Story 177. I chronically push people away when things start to get dark. I would rather suffer alone and in silence than feel like a burden to anyone. Story 178. I try too hard and end up making disingenuous friendships. Story 179. I have a hard time connecting with other women beyond cocktail chatter and polite, surface-level conversation. I would love to have a group of women I can belly laugh with, be silly with, and be close to. Story 180. I try too hard to be friends with people to the point that I stop socializing. Story 181. I am too busy and feel I am not important enough to others for them to want to hang out with me. Story 182. I have very few friends as I have gotten older. I have only 5 now, laughing out loud. I prefer to be alone. It is exhausting being around a lot of people. Story 183. I used to have friends until I limited that. Now I know many people but would not consider anyone a friend. I have family, and that is enough for me. Friends complicate things. Betrayals and backstabbing make relationships not worth it. I choose to live my life my way as a lone wolf with my family. Story 184. The last time I had a best friend was about 15 years ago when I was in college. One night he took my girlfriend and my ex to bed and had sex with them both at the same time while I was asleep on the couch in his living room. I have not really trusted anyone since. Story 185. There are few places to meet people naturally outside of work and bars. I don't drink, and my job rarely puts me in contact with others. My spiritual philosophy and practice have led me to an almost monastic lifestyle, so there are few people who share my outlook. Story 186. People at best tolerate me, and there are not many of them. Story 187. The only friends I ever made were in the army. Going through difficult experiences together bonds you for life. Many civilians do not understand and do not share the same values and morals, and other veterans are not the same as the people with whom you shared those hardships. Most people do not understand how post-traumatic stress disorder severely disrupts social interactions. Story 188. I had friends growing up, but I lost contact after I entered a relationship. I was the first in my group to become a parent, and they never attempted to visit or get in touch with me. I tried where I could to meet, but I could not give one-sided effort during a difficult time in my life. Can that be considered a real friendship? We have not been in contact for 10 years. Story 189. Anxiety combined with being an introvert who has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Story 190. Social situations lead me to drink. I do not like who I am when I drink. It is easier to abstain when I do not socialize. Story 191. I have the 3 people I need in my life. I don't need more. Story 192. I knew someone who wanted friends, but he had a traumatic, abusive childhood. It is sad because he wants love and believes it will change him. Story 193. I have yet to find anyone anywhere near as interesting to me as I am. Story 194. I am a combination of introversion and social anxiety. I am lonely but far too comfortable being by myself. It is predictable and safe. Socializing can be scary and unpredictable. Even with friends I have not contacted in years. Story 195. I don't care about others in the sense that I find it taxing to remember details of their lives, which would matter in an adult friendship. I want to care. That is the sad part. Story 196. I have autism spectrum disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and probable post-traumatic stress disorder stemming from past interpersonal trauma. I have friends. I see them in person occasionally, but not as frequently as some neurotypical friend groups, who see each other at least once a week and talk nearly every day. Story 197. I am not bad at making friends. There is a certain amount of upkeep you must perform with some friends in order to remain friends. I am not very good at this. More often than not, they are the ones who were never your friends to begin with. You find out who your friends are when you hit rock bottom. Story 198. I cannot fully trust people. I see relationships as transactional, so there is no reason to maintain them if you are not getting any return for your efforts. I am tired of having to beg people to spend time with me and of sustaining relationships that lead nowhere. That is all for now. I need to think further before giving a proper answer. Story 199. I am disabled and chronically ill, and I do not have the energy to maintain friendships. Story 200. My body is unable to text or message anyone first. Story 201. It feels like a burden to make new friends because I go through periods when I prefer to be left alone for weeks at a time. I have a wife and kids, so I'm not really alone. I used to be different, but I had a bad snowboarding accident as a teenager that led to postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. When it's bad, I can hyperventilate, sweat heavily, my brain dumps adrenaline, and I feel like I'm dying. I get quiet and pale until the adrenaline passes. My old friends thought I was going crazy because no one, including my doctors, knew what was happening. They decided to ditch me. These were people I had been friends with for over a decade. I was told I had post-traumatic stress disorder because the symptoms overlap with panic attacks, but I wasn't feeling anxious. I was anxious about the attacks because they could be intense. I ended up isolating for a long time out of embarrassment, and I hated people constantly asking if I was okay. I understand they meant well, but my condition became my whole identity to the people around me, even when I was fine. I even stopped going to church because of it. My life has improved dramatically since the postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome diagnosis and treatment plan, but the urge to isolate still lingers. Sorry, I'm not good at writing. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.